biggest questions that I consistently get is how to build a workout when I'm out of my normal circumstances. For instance, if you're short on time, if you're traveling, if you don't have access to any equipment. So in today's video, we're not only going to break down how I would approach 3 different scenarios, but I'm also going to give you a free download with each workout so you can take it with you the next time you come across one of them. But before we jump into that, if this is your first time here, my name's Justina. I'm a personal trainer based out of New York City whose goal is to help you get stronger and smarter through functional movement. If that all sounds good to you, please hit that subscribe button if you have not already. Stick around so you don't miss any future videos. So before we jump into the actual scenarios, I just want to break down my approach or framework when I'm looking at workouts outside of our normal circumstances. So instead of looking at muscle groups and trying to check off the list hitting each muscle, I'm going to look instead at movement patterns. Specifically, we're going to be looking at 4 different things: a knee dominant movement, a hip dominant movement, a upper body push, and an upper body pull. And while this doesn't necessarily hit everything, it does cover your bases pretty well, in my opinion, well enough when this is out of your normal routine. So let's apply that framework to 3 different scenarios. So the first scenario is when you just have access to free weights. And you're going to see this a lot when you're traveling. Hotel gyms, maybe the basement of your parents' house, or maybe you just want to tuck in the corner of a Planet Fitness, grab some free weights and call it a day. And throughout the entire video today, we're just going to kind of assume that everyone's goal is general wellness, feeling good, moving your body while you're out of your norm. So we're going to stick everything in kind of this hypertrophy range of about 3 sets of 8 to 12 reps. So the way I'm going to approach this workout is in supersets. We're going to put an upper and a lower body exercise together because, quite frankly, it's the best use of your time and it makes a lot of sense with free weight exercises. So the first thing we're going to do is a dumbbell rack squat. You'll need a set of medium to heavy bells here depending on your strength level, and then we're going to pair that with a single arm bent over row. Ideally, we have access to a bench or a chair to really take out the instability factor to load this up. And the reason I'm pairing these 2 exercises together is because the squat is going to hit more of the anterior chain or the front of the body. So not only are we hitting a little bit more of the quads, but we're also really going to be fatiguing the shoulders in that racked position. So then on the flip side, the bent over row is going to give the front of the body a little bit more time to recover. And then we're going to work a lot more on hitting the back or the lats specifically. So just to recap, in our first superset, we have our knee dominant exercise and then our upper body pull. In the next superset, we're going to do a rear foot elevated deadlift. So we do need a bench or chair for this exercise. And then we're going to pair this with a chest press. Kind of the same thing here. We want to make sure that we're alternating how much stress we're putting on which parts of the body. So the rear foot elevated deadlift is going to hit more of the posterior chain. So think more hamstring and glutes. And then the chest press is going to hit more of the chest, which is again back onto that anterior chain. So the second superset does finish out our checklist of hitting a hip dominant exercise as well as an upper body push. Now, one other thing to consider is that you will see that I did make sure to put in a upper body and a lower body unilateral exercise as well as bilateral. That just means are using 1 arm or 1 leg or 2 arms or 2 legs. Personally, I would recommend getting in a little bit of both in these types of workouts, but a lot of this is going to come down to the access to equipment that you have as well. So moving into our second example, let's say you're traveling and you only have access to machines. I have been on a lot of cruise ships. And honestly, I find that this is the case with most cruise ships. Even if they do have free weights, there's not really a lot of space or free room to use them. And you're on a boat, so it's rocky. So you kind of want something a little more stable. On the flip side, again, maybe you're just traveling and you're hopping into a Planet Fitness. And we know that most Planet Fitnesses are just free weights or machines. They don't really have barbells and things like that. At least most of them don't. So if you're just someone who's I just want to get some machine work in and call it a day, this is going to be a great one for you. For this workout, we're going to be doing all strict sets simply because, again, it is all machine work, so you don't want to be hogging 2 machines at the same time. First exercise on here is going to be a Smith machine RDL. We're putting this guy at the top because it is going to have the most instability out of all of the exercises, so we want to make sure that we're loading that up as much as we can at the beginning before we're too fatigued and really just locked into a machine. And this is going to be our hip dominant movement. If you wanted to get in a single leg variation of this, you could totally kickstand it, but I'm also kind of treating this like you're on vacation and you just want to get in and out, say you did something in the gym. So doing a bilateral variation is also great. Next, we're going to move into a seated overhead press. So this is going to be our upper body push. And you'll notice here that I'm specifically not only alternating upper and lower body, but also, again, thinking anterior and posterior chain. Posterior. So the RDL, again, is hitting more of the back of the body. Now we've got our overhead press, which is to upper body, and it's going to be a little bit more of that anterior chain. Then we're going to flip it back to the lower body, and we're going to go into a leg extension. Yes, we are putting anterior chain back to back, but to be fair, like we're isolating completely different muscle groups here. So leg extension is going to be anterior chain, but we're going into just the quad. And then finally, I'm going to put us at a seated row machine so we can just really burn out the back and get some nice heavy work in here. Now, I would say the exercise order in this scenario really isn't that important. Like, I'm putting it this way in a perfect world, in an optimal world. But honestly, if you're in this situation, because everything is so stable and stationary, I would say just pick the thing that's open and jump from machine to machine from there. But I would still recommend this framework of having something that's hip dominant, something that's knee dominant, and then an upper body push and pull. So finally, into our last scenario, which is no equipment. I would say this is another one that's really common when you're traveling and you just don't have access to anything, but you do want to get something in to move your body. So again, we are going to work in supersets here just for using our time to the best of our ability. And I'm going to start this with a hand-supported sissy squat. This is definitely a tough exercise, but what I'm trying to do here is get the biggest stretches and the biggest stimulus on your muscles as possible without having any external load. So a sissy squat is going to be incredibly quad dominant. We really want to lean back and force that knee forward to get as much of a stretch on the quad as possible. There are definitely alternate exercises here, but again, I'm trying to think of mimicking the same stimulus that you would get from actually adding load on the body. Then I'm going to pair that with a push-up. Good old-fashioned push-up. This is probably one of the best body weight exercises that you can do without needing any equipment. Of course, if you don't have push-ups from the floor, you can always grab a bench or a chair. You can elevate the hands and get your push-ups in from there. Now, while these are both anterior chain exercises, I don't mind putting them together simply because, again, we're not adding any external load on. So having a little bit more of that fatigue, I think, is fine in this scenario. Then we're going to move into our second superset, which is a time under tension single leg deadlift. Essentially, what we're trying to do here is keep as much tension on the hamstring, on the glute, on the calf as possible to really mimic a similar, if different, stimulus to if we actually had external load. This is definitely a tricky exercise again. So if you need to make this hand supported, I would definitely recommend doing so, because what we don't want is the balance to be the limiting factor. We want that like really nice burn to be the limiting factor. And then we're going to directly pair that with some wall slides. If I'm being honest, like if you have something like a pull-up bar, that would be the better use of your time. But we're going to treat this like you absolutely have zero access to equipment. So a wall slide is going to get a nice big burn on the back. And it's also added bonus going to really work on your mobility. If being at the wall is a little too challenging, you can just bring this to the floor, and that's going to be an easier entry point for you. So to recap, we have our two supersets, upper and lower exercises together. The sissy squat, that is going to be our quad dominant or our knee dominant exercise. We've got that with our upper body push with the push-ups. Then we're moving into the single leg deadlift, which is going to be our hinge or our hip dominant exercise, paired with our upper body pull, which is going to be the wall or floor slides. Now remember, if you want access to these exact scenarios, you can head down to the description box, join us over on the Samble app where the Fit Club is located, and you can access all three of these workouts free of charge, where you'll get demo videos, you'll be able to record your reps and sets, and just be set up the next time you find yourself in one of these situations. If you have any questions at all, please leave them down below. Make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on future videos, and I will see you all in the next one.